Well, I did a thing. I asked the guy who follows this, Jimmy Burke, about LeBron James. I called him up and I left him one message. I said, Jim, and I want you to be honest and don't insult me. At what age did LeBron James surpass me as an athlete? And be careful with your fucking answer.
He said
because I'm a proud man.
Did
I'm a proud man, and I'll kick your fucking ass. I hung up the phone. I got a very thoughtful dissertation, and I just got this. 12 years old, and there's no question about that. 12. By the time he was 14, he's 6'4", 235, best player in the country. You were not that. You're not even close to that.
He was 14.
Yeah.
He was 6'4".
Yeah, I think he was 6'4". Look at him. Yeah, he's a freak. Yeah, there you go.
Look at the size of him. Oh my god.
Yeah, he's 6'9", 265, and I sat next to Carlos Boozer, who played with him, and they're the same size. And he goes, he's just a step faster than everybody as well, and just ridiculously strong.
Well, see, a guy like that, if he was fighting, everybody would be fucked.
Of course.
They're lucky. Yeah. They are goddamn lucky there's that much money in basketball.
That's right. He's incredibly
LeBron
fast.
James got into that. And the people go, well, you know what, man? Some things that make a great basketball player wouldn't necessarily make you a great fighter. Listen to me. Save it. That guy's going to beat your fucking ass.
Yeah.
He's a winner. There's just a certain level of winners that, he'd do whatever the fuck he wants.
Whatever he wants.
That's an interesting conversation. There's UFC has a top weight limit, right? 265. So if you weigh over 265, you can't compete. And I know this because I've seen, I know a guy who's really tall. He's like 7'1" or 7'2", and he weighs a lot, and we were talking about it, and he always said, you wouldn't be able to actually fight in the UFC. They should remove it, actually, to let some of these crazy freaks of nature get in and fight, because that would be quite a spectacle. So back to the conversation. Do you guys think that LeBron James would perform well in UFC? There's kind of two schools of arguments on this, right? Like back in the day, the Royce Gracies, when they started bringing the jiu-jitsu gyms and doing UFC here in the United States, Royce talked about it in a video where he said, once the Westerners, like the US, Americans, and Europeans picked up on jiu-jitsu, they knew that they would start becoming outclassed just because on average, they were larger than South Americans, right? And so that athleticism would end up overtaking their skill once the Western skill, our skill, became larger as well. And eventually that happened, obviously. It's also a matter of just more of the population doing jiu-jitsu and doing other sports, and it becomes more competitive. But I do believe the athleticism counts. And so then you're going back to like U.S. sports or European sports or world sports, right? They're kind of dominated by African-American genetics, they're very athletic. There's a reason they're dominating sports. So you're seeing that now more and more in the UFC and in mixed martial arts, right? More African Americans are dominating. Look at John Jones. Look at Usman. Look at who's that other guy recently? The real big Nigerian guy. Anyway, there's a lot. Then you got Stylebender. All these guys. Is it a coincidence? I don't know. There's another thing that somebody was talking about. That's kind of the nature side of it. Somebody else was talking once about the prominence of great Mexican boxers, right? And how they dominate. I actually trained with the Benavides brothers back at Power MMA, back in Arizona years ago, back when I was in my 20s. But one of the things they talk about is athletically wise, Mexican people are not exactly dominating any sports, right? Except boxing. And it's almost like it's cultural. It's so ingrained in their society and it's so competitive there that they perform really well, and they have great boxers that dominate boxing, So you got to look at that. So, is it nature or is it nurture to some extent? I think it's also a game of numbers, right? It is one of the most popular sports in Mexico, boxing. So you have a much, much, much larger number of boxers training. How many African Americans are training boxing here in the United States? I don't think it's as much ingrained culturally. If you're a top tier athlete, fighting is probably not a lot of people's main choice, but it would be in Mexico. You see what I'm saying? I think a lot of other sports poach great genetics, Rogan was talking about LeBron James. One thing that comes to my mind is John Jones. I know John Jones is nowhere near as tall as LeBron or anything like that, but kind of the body type, right? Also style bender, tall and skinny. So you couldn't really just look at LeBron and say, hey, he's way too tall. We've really never seen anyone, close to 7 foot tall perform in martial arts. And it's not because it can't be done. We just haven't seen it because there's not that many people that tall that do it. But I would love to. I think back in the 90s, there was some real tall guys that were in the bare knuckle UFC days. But I don't think anyone quite as tall as any of these guys. But yeah, I do think LeBron would be a tough guy to beat. Is there an amount of length and height that then becomes a detriment? That's just something that would have to play out because there might be a level where it's like, man, you're just too tall. But that reach advantage, Madonna, he would be killing it. LeBron, absolutely. I think Joe's absolutely right. And he knows a lot more about MMA than I do, obviously. But the whole LeBron thing is kind of out there. What do you guys think? Thank you for watching. As always, buy red and sell green.